Peace, beautiful people. It's Holistic Selena, and today I'm going to be talking about shadow work, what it is, how to do it, and the understanding that integrating the shadow, shining light into the dark aspects of ourself is the whole purpose and process of healing and rising into your highest self. Shadow work is not the easiest thing to do, but once you start to do it, the benefits, delicious, delectable, like nothing compares. So what is a shadow? I know you can't see my board because I'm on focus mode, but the shadow is the unconscious parts of ourself that we deny and we repress. Our shadow can conflict with what we believe to be true of ourself and our identity and the way we want the world to perceive and think about us. And it's important to note that the shadow most likely was formed in childhood from years 1 to 7. And that is also when you began to repress those aspects of yourself because you were taught or you were shown that it wasn't good to be that or to feel that way or to believe those things or to express yourself in that way. So again, the shadow is repressed aspects of ourself that we deny and we suppress. So usually off bat, when you talk about shadow work, when you try to find your own shadow, you're not going to be like, that's it right there. It takes time. It takes peeling back some layers of yourself, of your identity, being honest with yourself, being vulnerable, and actually wanting to become your best self. That is how you initiate shadow work, is the commitment to become better. So I remember when I was 19 or 20 is when I started to do shadow work, and I started to just question, like, what is shadow work? Like, I don't think I have a shadow. Like, I treat myself good. I talk to myself good. Like, I don't really like negativity. I don't have a shadow. Like, what is that? And then my life initiated this whole journey of me being shown my shadow, of it being triggered, of people bringing it out of me seeing parts of myself that I was like, oh, how long has that been in there? Embarrassing. And now I'm 25, so 5 years later, I feel like I finally closed the gap of doing like the foundational shadow work and really integrating my dark parts into light and loving them truly. Okay, let's get into how you do shadow work. So I already communicated to you guys that step number 1 is first making that conscious commitment to yourself, to your body, to your mind, to God, to your environment, that you're ready to do better. You're ready to step out of your BS. You're ready to step out of your limiting beliefs, your doubts, your fears, your comfort, and you're ready to rise into a higher concept of yourself. Once you make the conscious decision that you're ready to do shadow work, you're ready to address your suppressed and rejected parts, the journey begins. First, begin by looking at your life like a movie and like a story. Look into your past. What are the themes? What are the reoccurring patterns? If you were to sit down with a big white sheet of paper and make a timeline of all of the big things that have happened in your life, like blessings, accomplishments, wins, traumas, injuries, sickness, family things, life things, world things, like make a timeline of your life. And once you do this, I want you to take note of the negative things that have affected you. Try to identify if there's a theme in a certain area of your life where you're constantly having tests, you're being humbled, you're going through trauma, you're going through unfortunate situations. Is there a story being told? Our life is literally a story, but most people are unconscious and they just go about their day and routine and cycles and not ever analyzing or reflecting that they don't notice the beautiful message being communicated through their daily life and how their childhood has so much potent information to help them be better now. As well as being a young adult, a teenager in your 20s, like every part of life has valuable medicine, but you have to notice it to utilize it. So I'll give you guys a little bit of insight and examples of my personal shadows and how I discovered it from looking at the timeline of my life. Growing up as a young kid, I was overweight, which then led me to be insecure and to lack self-love and confidence. So a lot of my shadow had to do with deep insecurity. Not in a place where you can notice it, but it was very internal. I was very self-conscious for many years. Even when I became more beautiful and I lost weight and I got attention and whatever, I still had that repressed insecurity, the repressed self-consciousness, the repressed lack of self-love, the repressed self-hate, because these things were very deeply rooted in my subconscious mind. So even if I did surface level work of affirmations or just like looking in the mirror and saying I'm beautiful or feeling beautiful, it did not shake the depth and the density of the shadow that was created from those years like 3 to 14. That's a long time. And when you are in your younger formative years, your brain is being formed, your perception of reality, of yourself, of how to show up, those things are being formed. Therefore, to undo it, it takes time. Once you start to identify the story and the shadow traits, you have to own it. Don't repress it even more. Don't try to lie to yourself to sound cool, better, or confident. Again, it's a lie. Be honest with yourself. The more honest you are, the deeper healing that can take place and the higher that you can rise. Once you pinpoint those shadow traits, write them down. Get very clear on it. And then start to notice how it's still showing up in your life today. A lot of these traits are traits that we judge in ourselves and in other people. For example, if you grew up with weight issues or insecurity issues, you're always going to be looking at other people's weight. You're always going to be looking at their mannerisms, the way they hold themselves, and you're going to judge people based on what you perceive and believe about them, because that's what you've done to yourself your whole life. And again, this is not on a conscious level. It's all subconscious. It's below your awareness. And the interesting thing about the shadow is that until you work on it, you're going to continuously attract people and situations to magnify this in yourself. But if you're not aware of your shadow, you're never going to see yourself. You're always going to point the finger at them, at the world, at society, at circumstances. You're always going to be blaming things instead of seeing yourself. Because what you're blaming in the outside world is what you're actually suppressing within yourself. So basically, shadow work is taking accountability for your own darkness and your own unconsciousness. And as you dive deeper into your spiritual studies, you'll also understand that there is no separation between us and the world. So when you see the world as a chaotic, horrible place with dark people and people are suffering and whatever, it's reflective of deeper parts of our own psyche and our own mind. The greatest thing you can ever do for the world is work on yourself. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of actually doing shadow work. What does it look like? How do you do it? And I'll give you examples and situations where you can start to apply this into your life. So if you're not clear on your shadows, just get into a relationship and you'll see your shadows. Your partner will bring it out of you sooner or later. As well as family members or certain triggering situations, something happened where you were embarrassed or you let someone down. These certain situations that either bring up anger, embarrassment, self-judgment, or like you did something wrong, like these situations usually will bring up the shadow. Within our shadow, we have the opposition, which is the light. It's the traits of light and the traits of love. If your shadow maybe is anger, that you're a very angry person towards yourself and the world, when there are situations that trigger your anger, be aware that your shadow is being triggered. And you consciously have a choice if you want to feed your shadow and project that shadow into the world, or if you want to take a moment to pause, to become conscious. And this transformation from dark to light is also symbolic of the journey within ourselves. So the outside world is going to give us situations, but the most potent situation is the internal one, where when you start to notice your shadow traits, you're going to start to see it in yourself. You're going to start to see how you speak to yourself, how your shadow traits are actually circulating within your own mind and your perception of yourself, especially when you're triggered, when you mess up, when you're not having a good day, when you take an L in life. Like, that's when the shadow comes up. Within those uncomfortable, unfortunate, or traumatic experiences in life, notice how the shadow self comes up. And instead of playing into the darkness of how you speak to yourself and how you perceive yourself, move into light. And we do this through compassion. Compassion is the healer of all things, I am convinced. And you'll start to notice that the shadow traits, they don't really serve purpose. They just make things harder and worse. So once you start to move more into light and love, you realize that those energies are what make things grow and expand, and life becomes better and sweeter, and you manifest miracles and the purpose and the money and the beautiful things. Once you notice that, you're going to want to be more love and light towards yourself, towards the world. You're no longer going to want to be your biggest bully, because what does that do beyond making yourself not like yourself and other people not like you either? If you're still having trouble identifying your shadow, ask a close friend or ask someone that knows you very well, that you trust, that's not a hater, and ask them, what are things in myself that you think I need to work on? It's like, what do you honestly think about me and my character? And most likely you'll get some good insight from those conversations, because a lot of people are so afraid to ask the honest truth of what people think about them, because they're subconsciously aware of their shadow. They're aware that they have a lot of suppressed character traits, emotions, baggage, judgments. Therefore, they don't want to know the truth about themselves because they know it's going to be a lot. And the more that you start to integrate your shadow and you start to shift the shadow into light, your external world will reflect that. You will see more light in this world. You will see the purpose in all things. You no longer judge, blame, point the finger. So in the process of doing shadow work, there can be feelings of self-judgment, of shame, of uncomfortableness, of just like, oh my God, like, I can't believe I feel this way and that these things have been inside of me for so long. But the beautiful thing is about doing shadow work is that the bigger the shadow, the bigger the light that's waiting there to be created. So that's why we should have more joy and excitement and view our shadow with a lens of positivity, because it is the work of the world, it is the work of God, it's the work of our higher self. And it's a path of integration, of merging light and dark, unconsciousness and consciousness, good and bad. You merge it all into one purposeful, beautiful ball of light and love. And we no longer attract situations and things and experiences that amplify our pain and our shadow. We all know that what you resist will persist. So a lot of the times in our shadow, we're constantly resisting these aspects of ourselves, but we're constantly manifesting and experiencing situations that amplify our shadow, that trigger our wounds, that hurt us in that place that comes from childhood, or that comes from that old relationship, or that comes from something someone told you 10 years ago. You'll continue to attract situations that hurt you, that make you feel like the world is a bad place, that you're not enough, that you're not beautiful, that you're not worthy. So once you genuinely start to do shadow work and you integrate the shadow, you accept it, you compassionately love it, you stop attracting situations that affirm your negative shadow traits. It'll start to affirm the light, the beauty of life, your worthiness, God's love, how anything is possible, how this world is abundant. All these amazing things will start to be validated and confirmed to you because you did the inner work. Inside is a reflection of the outside. Shadow work is the path towards freedom and towards lightness. So remember, the whole purpose of shadow work is integration, integrating all parts of yourself. There is no good and bad. There is no wrong and right. All parts are necessary. The light is just as necessary as the shadow is. And each person has a shadow. And the funny thing is, the healers and the people that have a lot of light and all the spiritual wisdom and all the power and whatever, they have huge shadows. And they probably had to do a lot of uncomfortable work on themselves to get to the point where they are. I love that beautiful quote that's like, no one knows how much darkness I had to go through to get to this point of lightness. And that's so true. I've done so much uncomfortable, hard work on myself because I understood and I believed in the work. And I was radically honest with myself because I wanted to free myself from the shackles of my shadow and I wanted to rise into the lightness of truth. I really wanted to stop being my own worst enemy and my own worst bully, and I wanted to remove my limiting beliefs and my lack of worthiness of love and abundance and purpose. Like, I was just ready to let go of all of that stuff. And a lot of the times in our childhood, our parents, they just didn't know better. A lot of our parents were very unconscious and they could not properly guide us in these areas of self-love, of self-worth, of life purpose, of the mind, of self-talk, of all these different things. They didn't know better. So when you become older, it's up to you to do better, to do the shadow work, to integrate the dark unconscious parts of yourself, because it is through that where the most grand path opens up for you to walk your life purpose. You start to wake up, you stop being asleep, you start to see things for what it is. And that is the greatest blessing of this world and this life. With one more thing, kind of personal, but I want to talk about how what you resist will persist in your life. In my life, I have only been in very hard, traumatic relationships with men that were deeply traumatized, and I just went through a lot. And it was because of how much of repressed shadow I had. So I would attract these men and I would have some type of weird attraction, and our frequency like met on some level, and I resonated with their darkness. The reason why the relationships were so hard, because I just didn't understand why I was going through it. Like, I don't deserve this. Like, it's so hard. This is horrible. Like, why is this happening to me? But then after I left every single one of those relationships, I had the biggest awakening where I had no choice but to see my shadow, but to realize why I attracted him, why I was in it for so long, why those things happened. Once I actually reflected on it, I started to see parts of my shadow. I was amazed, I was flabbergasted, I was kind of embarrassed, but then I did the work to love those parts of myself so they no longer have to follow me around and attract those situations and attract those men. I integrated it into love. So therefore I attract love and I live in love and I believe in love. So that's all I have today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I definitely will make more videos about the shadow and about shadow work, maybe more specific, because this was kind of a broad topic. Much love, many blessings.